Hey everybody, today's a really special day because I have with me from Keystone Chiropractics, Dr. Jonathan Chung, who is here to share with us some rehab moves using the MaxPAC. Dr. Chung, thanks for coming here and sharing what you can do to help rehab back and neck and spine and shoulders and other body parts. So, what do you have to share with us that can help someone who's trying to rehab some of these issues they're having?
Let's talk about some of the simple things that people can do. So one of the most frequent things that people will have is they'll have some issues with their shoulder. So a lot of times they'll have rotator cuff problems. And one of the things that people have to do is once they get range of motion back in their shoulder, then they really have to start putting some resistance against it. And no one wants to be stuck in bands forever. You have to get some movement and resistance that comes from a physiological stimulus like a weight. And some of the things that you could do with a MaxPAC is you could do something like MaxPAC is something like a shoulder press where you could hold MaxPAC in your hands and you could start to do some overhead pressing.
Squeezing with your thumbs, yep.
So you could squeeze and get some of the grip strength aspects of it too. So you could explore different ranges of motion. So if someone's range of motion is fairly painful, the thing that's great about having a free weight is you can find a pain-free range of motion and work in that pain-free range of motion, and then you gradually bring them into a range of motion that you want and desire, which might be straight overhead. So that's the thing that's really important about having something like a free weight is you get this very dynamic, wide range of motion that comes along with that.
That's great. What other body parts or other suggestions do you have for some other injuries or rehab that people are doing after shoulder? What else could we do?
One really common complaint is lower back pain. So lower back issues, a lot of people try to avoid lifting weights when that's actually going to promote a lot of weakness. So one of the things we have to do is you have to start to strengthen a lot of the muscles in the lower back. So one of the classic exercises for lower back rehab is something called a good morning, and you work through principles of hinging from your hips. So one way that you could take the MaxPAC is you could hold it against your chest, and you could do a crossover grip. You could get the grip strength aspect with it. And then while you're gripping tightly, you're just going to bend from the waist, keeping your back straight. You're going to feel the force go into your hamstrings. You're going to get nice and tight through there. And then you squeeze your butt and bring yourself back up. So that's one way you could start to add a good morning or a back extension type of a movement with it. And by getting your grip and squeezing the MaxPAC, you could start to train some of those flexor muscles, which is really important measurement for brain health. It's a really important measurement for health as we age as a whole. So that's one of the go-to back exercises, but you could also hold it in the same way. You could start doing squats with them.
Right. Now, would you like to try a heavier weight since you're a really strong dude?
Well, we could start to mix in the heavier weights.
Let's mix them up a little bit. Here is the 16-pound blue.
So again, you're going to take this crossover type of a grip, hold it high up, squeeze into it, and just go into your squat. And if you want to add some overhead with it, you can grab both sides of it, and then you could go from the squat and then go straight into an overhead press with that. And you can
squeeze and pull, squeeze and press.
Shoulders, hips, quads, and you're working on grip as well. So that's another way where you might progress someone that has, plateaued with a back extension. You want to get them to do a physiologic exercise. So that's another way that you could start to work on training your hips and your back too.
That's wonderful. And what else for fingers? We had mentioned about how gripping into the MaxPAC is good for fingers and arthritis and osteo joint issues. Want to comment a little bit about that?
Sure. So one way you could stress the fingers and tax them more is to hold something that's far away from you. So you can start to press away from you. Hold on really tight and start to bring it back and squeeze your shoulder blades back. Just hold it at the end and bring it back. You could also turn it into an isometric by just squeezing and holding, and that will fatigue your grip quite quickly, and you can start to bring it in. So the more that you challenge your weight, especially using isometrics or eccentrics, you can start to work on the tendons of your body too.
That's great. That's great. So what was one more thing that you wanted to share about your total body rehab, like for feet maybe? What about for ankles and arches and toes? What about something like that and balance?
Sure. So one way that you could start to incorporate some balance training is, and normally we would do this in bare feet, right? Because if you do it on bare feet, you can use your toes and actually grip into.
You can use your bare feet on here if you want to. I gotta check and see if I had a pedicure.
So one way that you could do is you go into bare feet and you could do a single leg stance and use your toes to really dig into the surface. And then you could do anything from just ranging from a single leg stance if someone is relatively unstable. If they're fairly athletic, you could start to get them into these little airplane type poses. And that'll really work on their toe strength. You can start to bring them up and then bring it out this way. You could go laterally and swing the legs across. And in our clinic, we do a lot of vestibular rehabilitation. So you could just hold a MaxPAC.
Here we go. I always combine.
You could stare at the little target and the logo in the center, and you could just shake your head while you're doing this one leg stance. And that way you could add some vestibular rehabilitation on top of some balance training.
That's a new one for me.
Yeah.
When I do some training for balance too, I stand in the middle, and then I either can hold it in a taco shell grip or in a pizza or even still in the sandwich grip. And I do the same type of things that you were saying. I lift and tap and lift and tap and press and pull and press and pull. And sometimes I just make circles. Sometimes I come from behind. Whoops. See? Challenging balance all the time. And lift and tap. So this works my glutes and my lower back. And I crunch and press and crunch and press. And like you said, out to the side. So I have forward and back and out. So these are lots of wonderful ways that you can strengthen not just the leg that's moving, but of course the leg that's balancing.
Yeah, there's no question. And the most important thing is like adding weight and adding resistance is the most valuable way you can make an exercise more challenging. So you always take people from not being able to move because they're in pain or they're feeling dizzy or not feeling quite right. You have them start by doing things without weight, but then as soon as possible, you want to add resistance and make the body adapt to the amount of weight that you're stacking on top of it, because that's how you can create physiological change, not only in the muscle, but also in the brain and the nervous system as well.
See, that's what I love too. Say that one more time. This is why weight training and strength training and adding this all together helps our mental health, our brain health, our cognitive functions. And that's one of the most important things as we get older, to have pattern movement, have, changes of depth perception and things like that, that keeps our brain sharp, right?
Yeah. So movement is like a vitamin and a nutrient for the brain. Without movement, then parts of the brain that are dedicated towards those muscles, those parts of the brain will actually start to shrink. And if you don't do something that's actually going to challenge the brain, then it's never going to progress or keep growing. It's going to stay at the same level, or it's going to start to regress, which is why as people get older, they stop moving as much, they stop lifting weights, and they progress into getting things like dementia, Alzheimer's, and things that are associated with decreased blood flow and just decreased use. So the more that we could actually maintain our fitness, maintain muscle mass, you're actually doing something that's really valuable for brain health.
I absolutely love that. That is one of my number one principles too when we do all these exercises, all the focus and attention and then variable patterns that the brain has to fire all those motor neurons to do. And I really love that you said that, because it's very vital that our brain health matches our physical body health. And we don't realize that our body health really stimulates and maintains our brain health. That's a wonderful principle that everyone, when they work out, should realize. It's really also for the brain, not just for their biceps.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. Especially as we get older, it's even more important that you challenge your body and your brain to whatever level feels safe for you. And as long as you can do a movement and an exercise safely, then you should try to progressively make it more difficult and more challenging for you. That's within the range of your safety limits.
That's wonderful. I'm so happy and grateful that you came here to share your knowledge and your expertise with us, Dr. Chung.
Yeah.
Chiropractics, it's Keystone Chiropractics. It's such a delight to meet you and to have you here with me today to share the MaxPACs and how you can use them in rehab and in chiropractic care. So thank you so much for coming.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure.